In the heart of Peterborough, this is Salam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Assalamu alaikum. And welcome to this. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, that's a bad start. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Madhia and welcome to today's show of Secrets of a Good Life. I'm co-hosting today with
Ruqia
and today's topic is about this one aspect or this one thing that we are doing that's really affecting our quality of life. As always, you're listening to us on Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. You can call in on 01733 602 133. You can text on 07411 191062. You can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter or Twitch. So, it's a big claim. I'm saying there's one thing that we are doing in our lives that's affecting the quality of our life. And if we change this, the quality of our life will also change. And the reason I mention this is because many of us reflect on how a couple of decades ago, look at our parents' generation or even my generation. I won't disclose.
I'm giving away your age.
Yeah, I won't disclose too much. Anyway, our growing up experience was very different to the children that are growing up, let's say in the past 15 years particularly. Let's call it 2 decades at most, right? The growing up experience is very different. And what we're seeing and noticing more and more is the number of complaints people have of aches, pains, worries, stress,
infertility, diabetes, weight gain,
ADHD, and
eczema, psoriasis, you name it.
Asthma. Babies are born with intolerances to food.
Exactly, yeah.
And also we're noticing first-time cases of ADHD and autism in families.
It's really interesting because, I mean, if you think about allergies, for example, if I think about my grandparents' generation, I don't think they would know the meaning of the word allergy. Our parents
That's why they get a little frustrated with us, don't they?
Yeah, they're like, oh, just give them the food. Just give them the gluten. What's the problem?
So you're causing the problem because you're making them too sensitive.
My parents, again, they wouldn't have really known about allergies. If I think about my family, in my generation, we had maybe a couple of people with asthma, mild asthma, and maybe mild eczema. Temporary eczema that would disappear. And then in my nieces and nephews, we have egg allergy, nut allergy, eczema, asthma, dairy intolerances, gluten intolerances. And you just wonder what's changed.
Yeah, and this is even in children who are breastfed, in babies who are breastfed. So, there are some arguments that it's, because they're forming milk and what it might contain. And that is a conversation in and of itself. But the issue is that even in babies that are being breastfed, we're still witnessing intolerances.
I mean, in general, breastfeeding, there's clear evidence that children who are breastfed are less likely to have intolerances and allergies. But at the same time, even in breastfed children, we're seeing more of these than we would expect, given that they're breastfed.
And we've seen in the past, we're seeing more and more compared to what we'd seen in the past. We're also getting a lot of brain fog. Like brain fog is like a modern era issue. And because, when we speak to our grandparents, they can remember. And I was commenting about your grandma, wasn't I? How she remembers everything. And she remembers
She's
me
sharp.
each time she meets. I don't meet her that often. But, even my mum was commenting on when she met her and other people commented on how aware she is and how much she understands.
She does not forget and she does not miss a beat. And people in sort of the generation below her, my parents' generation, even in their 60s, are beginning to develop things like dementia.
There's a comment by Brother Faisal, a great question actually, and he's saying maybe these allergies, etc., existed in the past, but there was no awareness. That's often an argument that people put forward, is that actually we have more medical technology, more medical developments, so we're able to identify allergies that we may not have identified in the past.
Okay, I can understand that argument to some extent, and I think when that's an argument we hear even with things like, say, autism. or ADHD. It wasn't recognized before. And
ADHD particularly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an argument we hear quite often. But I remember when I was training as a GP, we had a lecture with a pediatrician, a community pediatrician. So they are very much focused on what we call the developmental disorders in children, so things like autism and ADHD among them. And so this question was posed to her. Someone said, is it just that we're better at recognizing these disorders now? We're better at diagnosing them? And she said, say 20 years ago, they diagnosed severe autism, but they might not be picking up mild autism.
You're right, yeah.
But now, the severe autism that would have been picked up even 20 years ago, even those cases have increased by 15-fold.
15-fold.
15-fold. So this is not just down to us being better at recognizing it. And when it comes to allergies or intolerances, I mean, intolerances I can understand, say people might have had abdominal issues and never recognized that food might be causing it. But there's clear research that when it comes to things like eczema, again, rates have gone up exponentially. When it comes to severe allergies that wouldn't have been missed before, things like peanut allergy, again, they've gone up in the last 10, 15 years, they've gone up something like 15-fold. So
that's an incredible number. Like that's like, it's only 15 years.
Right. That's
only 15 years,
yeah.
And that's like an incredible figure, 15-fold.
Right.
We're not saying 15%, by the way.
Yeah.
We're saying 15-fold.
Times 15. Yes.
So
scary, isn't it?
It is scary because it's not just scary for where we are now, but it's scary for where we're heading.
Right. Exactly. And what's, I mean, we haven't even mentioned where we're going with this and what we're actually talking about.
We haven't even mentioned
so
the issue
far.
yet.
But the issue itself, we know that because of technological advances, because of increased demand for certain products, because of people cutting corners more, the issue itself that we believe is a big factor in the causes of these issues that we're talking about, that is going to get worse and it's going to rise exponentially. So yes, unless people become more aware and we start changing what we're exposing ourselves to, but also lobbying governments more, things are just set to get worse.
Okay, so we don't want things to get worse. We want to make a change. So to make a change, we need to understand what's causing this. And I know we mentioned asthma, eczema, autism, ADHD, and we've spoken about that a little bit. What I don't want to miss is actually, it's not just that. Fertility. The number of cases where women have given birth to one child, but then struggled after that. The number of cases of women are struggling to give birth with the first child.
Miscarriages as well.
Miscarriages. A phenomenal number of increase in miscarriages.
Yeah.
Do you know the stats at all?
I don't know the stats, but we know that miscarriages are increasing. And again, generally, it's said it's unclear why, but there are some associations that we get from the research. The problem is that research takes a long time to filter into medical practice.
Yeah. We're talking about other things such as hair loss. Like you'll see families in which grandmas and mothers have beautiful, thick hair still, and yet the younger generations are coming with stringy hair or hair that's
coarse hair, brittle hair, really thin hair. Yeah.
So I want to mention them because it's not just the physical issues that we've spoken about, but really it's a whole round of issues.
It can be any symptom.
Yeah.
Can be down to this problem that we're about to mention now. We're just creating suspense here.
We are really creating suspense, and I'm going to create even more suspense because we're not going to disclose what this issue is until after the adhan, which is, we still got just over a minute for the adhan, but I want to hold that thought on what the issue is.
Yeah, and the reason it affects every single system is because of the cause. It's not one cause, but this particular factor, it can get into anybody's system. It can get anywhere into our cells in any part of our body, and therefore pretty much any symptom or any disease could be impacted by this issue.
And we're talking about mental health issues as well. So we are talking about like anxiety, like every other person, actually not even every other person, literally everyone has got anxiety to some degree. Some more serious than others. Depression, it's probably touched most people, if not everyone. More cases of OCD, PTSD, and just kind of like that mental state where, our elders would say that we're not strong mentally. Like we're not really stepping up.
Yeah.
In our game.
I mean, you could just sum it up by saying everyone is sick and tired
Literally.
We are all
physically
sick
and physically
tired.
and
Yeah,
mentally.
yeah.
And not just sick and tired in a sense like we're sick and tired of what we're experiencing, but we're actually physically sick and
Yeah, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
It's time for change, right?
Right, definitely.
We'll go into the adhan now, within a few seconds.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for Maghrib Azan. This Azan is sponsored by Park Foods. Come and see the difference.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the show.
This is Salam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim
Madhia
Community Radio.
At Secrets of a Good Life show, and I'm
Ruqia.
co-hosting with.
Sorry,
I am going to
distracted.
get good at this
Someday.
someday soon, hopefully.
So,
You're listening to us on Slam Radio on 106.2 FM. This is the Secrets of the Good Life show. You can call us in on 01733 602 133. Text on 07411 191062. Please do share your comments on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. We're talking about a topic that's relevant to each and every one of us, and it's something that's going to make a difference to the quality of our life. So the suspense can be over. So what is this one issue, Dr. Ruqia, that is affecting us and leaving us to feel sick and tired?
Toxins and toxicity.
Toxins and toxicity.
So
What does it actually mean, though? Right.
So when we say toxicity, I think immediately most people will think like psychologically, toxic relationships or whatever.
Oh, right. I didn't
that's
think that
important.
actually.
When I hear the word toxicity, that's the first thing that springs into my mind.
Relationships. Yeah, I see. You're right.
But that's not what that's an important topic for another day.
Yeah.
But today, that's not what we're talking about. Today,
Not
we're
at all.
talking about chemical exposures. So chemicals that end up in our bodies that shouldn't be there, and the impact that they then have on the functioning of the body at all levels.
And it's and essentially we're becoming sick and tired inadvertently.
Right.
It's happening almost like behind the scenes.
Right. Exactly.
In our homes. We're inviting it into our homes.
Yeah.
It's happening behind the scenes slowly. And so it goes unnoticed.
Yeah, and these are things that are slow poisons. It's not like being exposed to, I don't know, carbon monoxide, which kills pretty quickly. These are slow poisons, so you get tiny amounts into your system, and this is potentially one of the reasons why they're not recognized as being harmful, because studies are usually not carried out over, 2 decades, whereas some of these chemicals might be building up in your system over 2 decades and then manifesting the problems that they cause. And the other issue is that often when these toxins are tested, what they do is they say, oh yeah, we know they're harmful in high doses, but we have no evidence that they are harmful in low doses, because the low doses are checked, given to people over a short period of time, and they don't notice anything obvious.
Right.
So
they don't make the link possibly either.
Potentially,
because
right.
it's done over time.
Right.
It goes unnoticed.
And also because the symptoms that you might experience as a result can be so varied from person to person.
Right.
That what do you look for? Like our randomized control trials are not designed to pick up like a huge variety of symptoms in that way. So for these reasons, it's not recognized generally that they are causing harm, or at least the recognition there is that they have the potential for harm, but they decide that, oh well, at low doses we're all right.
It's not killing anyone immediately.
Right.
So.
There's this saying that the poison is in the dose, meaning that it's only a poison if you give it at high doses. Whereas now we're beginning to find more and more evidence that actually it's a slow killing poison. The lower doses are just slower at killing you,
Right.
but they are still killing you.
So yeah, this is it's a serious topic because. Like you just said, it's hurting us physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And not just hurting us, but actually slowly killing us. And so, you might think we're going to die anyway. So, how do I know that it's slowly killing me? Maybe I was meant to die at that point anyway. But that's not just the point. The point is actually it's affecting the quality of our life.
Quality of our life. And I think, I don't know about anybody else, but, more than living a long life, I want to live a healthy, good life, right? And that's what this show is about. It's not about a long life, it's about living a good life.
Absolutely.
And often the two go hand in hand. People who are healthier and looking after themselves, they will live longer. But that the length of our life is decided by Allah, but we definitely have some control of the quality of our life. And hopefully there's hints and tips you're going to pick up on this show that will help you improve the quality of your life, and sometimes pretty quickly with some simple changes.
So where do we find these toxins? That's the big question. And we were saying, we invite it into our own homes, and we're saying that it goes unnoticed. How are we inviting these toxins into our own homes?
They are everywhere. So 100 years ago, this is why there are so many diseases that were either unrecognized or not known of, 100 years ago, that are now common in our day and time. That's because 100 years ago, the majority of these toxins didn't exist, right? And the problem, as I mentioned earlier, is that every year we're adding to these new toxins, right? Every year there's a new chemical coming out because you're producing some new technology or some new product or whatever it might be. And generally we are not giving time to recognize, actually, do we know enough about this thing? Have we really studied what impact it's having on our entire system? We haven't. Usually we haven't checked what it's doing to the environment, we haven't checked what it's doing to the human body, but they're everywhere. So they are, when I say everywhere, I mean in everything. So from the dishes that you're eating from.
Yeah, sorry,
to
sorry.
the
I'm going
sofas
to just stop you there because that's what I want to go into is literally making a list of what they are. So you're about to now share with us a list of things that we need to look out for that we invite into our own homes where we are going to find these toxins. But don't worry, we're not just looking at where you're going to find the toxins. We're not going to leave you there. We're also going to share with you alternatives and what you can do to prevent these toxins from entering your home or at least reduce the amount of toxins we're invited to our homes.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a journey,
yeah,
right?
sure.
And we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the place we start is first to understand where we can find them. We've just spoken about how they harm us. But now let's find out what what it is that we're looking out for and where we can find it. So go ahead. Sorry, Dr. Gay, you were mentioning
So
the
the
list
first
of
thing
where
I
we
would say
can find
that
it.
to avoid them completely, I don't think is possible. It's possible unless, well, I don't know where, anywhere in the world where you could completely avoid them. But there's a lot we can do to reduce our exposure to them, and particularly exposure to children with their developing brains and their developing bodies. But in terms of where we find them, so let's begin with I think the most obvious place is our cleaning products. Maybe it's obvious to me because I find I get headaches with a lot of cleaning products. If I clean the bathroom with your usual
Bleach.
Yeah, bleach or what's the creamy thing called Sif,
Sif, yeah.
right? I get headaches.
Sif is the brand name, not actually what it is.
Oh,
but
okay, the cream
anyway,
cleaner.
yeah.
The cream
Well,
cleaner.
everyone knows what we're talking about.
Well, I don't use it anyway. That's why I can't remember. Okay, and that's my excuse. Not because I don't clean.
Family members are not allowed to call in to say otherwise.
To confirm either way. So so I find I get headaches with them as soon as I use them.
Myself too, actually. That's why I stopped using bleach a long time ago.
And you can just sense it, even if you don't get headaches. You know that smell. You're like, oh, that is not like
It's overpowering.
right. It's overpowering. It just doesn't feel right. So that
Some people love it. Some people they say until I don't smell bleach in my bathroom, I don't feel it's clean.
Oh, I don't know. Makes
But
me
that's
feel
to do with
nauseated.
association, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
it's
we'll
just
come back to that. So you're talking about cleaning products.
cleaning products.
So what are these cleaning products that you're talking about? So like washing up liquid, dishwasher tablets, washing powder.
Yeah. So your bleach that you're using in your bathrooms, the sprays that you're using everywhere, and sprays are particularly a big issue because they get into our lungs so quickly because they're sprays, right?
Because it's in the
aerosols.
air, right? This
So
aerosol.
they get into our lungs, and that's a very easy route into the rest of our body. But you've mentioned washing powders, you've mentioned washing up liquids, you've mentioned cream cleaners. Let's see, what else do people use?
Just what you mop with, like you might use something to
Right, okay.
yeah.
The glass cleaning stuff that has a bit of vinegar in it, but the rest of it is all sorts of
Toxins,
things.
yeah.
All of these things will contain chemicals in there that are going to in some way get into your body and are going to cause issues for you and your children. And I think particularly if you have children in your family with asthma, or anybody in your family with lung issues, these are things that you really need to watch out for. And while we're on the topic of lung conditions or respiratory conditions, things like scented candles, for example, they can be a big issue for some people. And it's really interesting. I went to a home visit for a couple once, and they both had COPD. So this is a condition that affects the lungs, and it's linked to smoking generally. But I've now seen more and more people who don't smoke or haven't been exposed to secondhand smoke that have COPD changes. Anyway, this couple did smoke their entire house tank of cigarettes. But then they had obviously decided, the doctor's coming round, we better cover up the smell of smoke. They had sprayed around ridiculous amounts of air freshener and scented candles. And I was thinking...
You also get those plug-in air fresheners as well.
Right, exactly, those two. And I was thinking, this is like the perfect environment to just get that
Breed
COPD
toxicity,
to get that COPD to just progress as fast as you can. It was no wonder that both couples had COPD and severe COPD at that. So yeah, all of these things that we need to watch out for. The interesting thing is, we do have alternatives to these things, and traditional alternatives to these things, but people, because they're less convenient maybe.
They are less convenient because you can't just pull out a spray and start using it. You have to put some things together. But before we move on to that, I have a question. So let's say someone's using bleach to clean their bathroom or whatever else, or maybe they're using Cif to clean their oven. Yes, I've done that in the past. So what is actually happening to, how is it affecting their body in that moment? I know you briefly touched upon it when you said those chemicals and they're harsh and you could tell, but really from your perspective as a doctor, what's happening to the individual who's cleaning using these harsh chemicals? What's happening to their body?
Okay, so let's start off with, say, you've sprayed something around the bathroom, right? Or air freshener, used an air freshener. So the air freshener...
What if it's a cream and it's not a spray?
Sorry?
What if it's a cream, like SIF,
Okay,
and not a spray?
as long as you can smell something, you're
Right.
inhaling particles of it. Anything that we smell it because some particles of it entering our nostrils.
Right.
And they are sometimes so small that they can get into our cells. If they can get into our cells, they can definitely get into our blood vessels, right? So so you get these chemicals entering into your system through your nose, for example. I mean, we do get loads of chemicals in cosmetics, but so far we're just talking about the cleaning product, right?
You haven't got to that yet.
You haven't got that far yet. But so you get into through your nose and your lungs. The first thing that they can do in the lungs is actually they can cause inflammation. So your body has a very clever system of recognizing foreign particles inside. And the body's job is to get rid of this particle. So the inflammatory response is actually a beneficial response. It's there to try and clear this thing out.
That's absolutely brilliant. So I want to hear more about the inflammatory response after the break, and also the other aspects and things that are in our home that are hurting us. See you guys soon.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Our shish kebabs are grilled on a charcoal barbecue for that authentic taste. Lamb shanks, fresh shawarma, chili kebab, lamb shish, grilled chicken, freshly made baklava and so much more. Eat in or order through Peterborough Eats or Peterborough Grab. Asia Restaurant, 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Call us on 01733 562 530. Great prices, great quality. Why not come and find out for yourself? Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
मैं महानूर मजीद हूँ और कोर्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत आशियाना है जहाँ मेरे जैसे हजारों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की कफालत बेहतरीन अंदाज में की जा रही है। आएं हमारे सरों पर दस्ते शफकत रखें और इस माह रमज़ान अपने सदकात, खैरात और एहतियात से हमारी कफालत में अपना हिस्सा डालें। अल्लाह पाक आपका दिया हुआ माल अपनी बारगाह में कबूल फरमाए। आमीन।
Court UK office
0300 123 774 court.org.uk.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh cream cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
Peterborough. Who said good quality fried and grilled chicken has to be expensive? At Sam's, we take pride in every piece of chicken that leaves our kitchen. Just one bite of our chicken or burgers is all it takes to realise we are the best. Visit us at our brand new place at 333 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PF. Or order a delivery through Just Eat, Uber or Deliveroo. Sam's, the home of great tasting chicken for over 30 years.
हाँ जी जनाब आज तुसने किया 12 बजे वे
जरा फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इसी च परेशानी है लिकड़ी गल है इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ उते फ्री पार्क करो उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी इंडियन चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले
ए तेरा अक्सर इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue Peterborough PE1 4JP टेलीफोन 01733 313131
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Secrets of a Good Life show. I'm your host Madhia and I'm co-hosting here today with
Ruqia Zafar.
As always, you can call in on 01733 602 133, text on 07411 191062. Do share your comments on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter or Twitch. If you've got any questions or anything's come up, just drop us a message, a text message, or call in. We'd love to have a conversation with you because we know how much this learning has impacted our lives and improved the quality of our lives. And also we've seen it impact other people, which is something that we're going to talk about now. So before we left off, we were talking about the case study of a person cleaning their home with a cream product, and we left off saying that as long as you can smell, it enters your nose and then it enters into your system, enter into your lungs.
Right. Okay. So your nose actually has a lot of blood vessels inside the lining of your nose, and so that's a very easy way to get any kind of chemical into your system. That's why we sometimes use intranasal medication, because it just gets into the system so quickly. So it gets into your system, and then the body produces an inflammatory response. So that's a natural way that the body is trying to get rid of this chemical. The issue is that the inflammatory response is basically when the immune system is mounting a response of fight against this foreign substance that's coming to the body.
Yeah.
The issue is some of these substances that look so much like, on a molecular level, they look so much like certain tissues of our body that it can be hard for the immune system to recognize what's foreign and what isn't. And so the inflammatory response that's produced can then start attacking certain parts of our own body. So this is when we start seeing what we call autoimmune conditions or allergic conditions. So just
for the sake of everyone else, what do you mean by autoimmune?
So autoimmune conditions would be things like, MS is an autoimmune condition. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition. Then there are some conditions that have an autoimmune element to them. So for example, diabetes has an autoimmune element to it. Thyroid disease can often be autoimmune. So all of these conditions are down to your immune system on some level overacting or malfunctioning in some way. And actually, I don't like saying malfunctioning. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing what it's designed to do, but it's just been exposed to something that our bodies are not designed to be exposed to. As I said, 100 years ago, we didn't have these chemicals. And so our body wasn't built to be dealing with these chemicals. And now we're exposing the body
and
to
hence
something.
why we had a lower number of autoimmune conditions.
Right, exactly. And
That's
again,
really
that's
interesting.
another group of conditions that are just going up and up and up. And what's really interesting is, even when I qualified as a doctor, so this was in 2007.
Don't give numbers away.
So in 2007, if I thought about, say, a condition like celiac disease, which has a genetic component but also an immune system component to it, I didn't see that in the Asian community at that time. It was something we saw in, white people, English people, but we didn't really see it in the Pakistani community, for example. I'm beginning to see more and more children now with celiac disease, and you've got to wonder where that's coming from.
Absolutely.
And while I can't say, oh yes, it's chemicals causing it, it's definitely something new or something that we're exposed to more now than we were before. That's partly responsible for sure. And there are a whole host of other conditions that fall into that group of autoimmune conditions that are becoming more and more common.
Okay, so share with me a story. Share with me some cases that you've experienced where it is definitively because of a toxin that's led to something that's autoimmune.
Okay.
Let's say, MS.
Okay, MS, good example. So I used to, just a few years ago, I had a mentor who I sat in her clinics, and the reason I actually went to see her was because she practiced a very different form of medicine. She called it ecological medicine. And so this was, sometimes people refer to it as functional medicine. This is looking at root cause of any disease, and also looking at as a whole being, right? As an ecosystem living within a bigger ecosystem.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I see why it was called
ecological medicine, right?
Yeah.
And because she was looking at us as an ecosystem living within an ecosystem, she recognized that the toxins that are destroying the ecosystem of the earth,
which we know they are,
must be having an impact on us. So she very much focused.
That's smart.
Very smart. So she focused on nutrition a lot, but she also focused on toxicity a lot. So, which I knew nothing about at that point, and to be honest, is barely even recognized as a cause of chronic disease by most of our medical colleagues anyway. So I sat in her clinics, and she had a guy came.
Sorry, can I just ask you, did she have a medical background?
She was a doctor, medical doctor.
She was a medical
she
doctor, right.
initially trained in emergency medicine, which she said she loved. But she said, these people were coming in to say heart attacks and strokes. But she wanted to know how to stop them from coming in the first place.
Makes sense.
So she decided she wanted to do something to stop people getting to hospital. So she, and this was about 25, 30 years ago. So this
When
whole
she
idea,
started
she was like a pioneer in that sense,
Yes.
It was, doctors just are not aware now, they were even less aware then. So anyway, so this young man came in who had been recently diagnosed with MS.
When you say young man, can you give me an idea of how
He was
old
in his
may have been?
30s.
In his 30s,
In
MS,
his 30s,
okay.
had young children, was diagnosed with MS. And how it started was he started getting symptoms of losing his eyesight. Went to see his doctor, was referred to a ophthalmologist and then a neurologist, and they discovered he had MS. MS is an autoimmune condition, and it's a condition that it's a very scary diagnosis to be given.
Yeah.
It can be disabling for a lot of people, debilitating. It has a huge impact on your quality of life, just not a nice condition to have. So anyway, so here he is losing his eyesight, and now he's been told it's MS, and you're probably going to be completely blind very soon. So, but he decided he wasn't going to accept that. He wanted answers, and he wanted to know why it's happened and what he can do about it. So he went to see this mentor of mine. I was in the clinic, and he came in, and she decided to look. Well, she took a very thorough history from him first, and what she learnt was that he had some kind of infestation in his home. So he decided to get it treated, and so he called some company in that deal with these kinds of infestations, and they came in and fumigated his house. And they told him, that because they know these things are toxic, they told him not to come into the house for 4 hours. I think Jenny would say, or my mentor would say, don't go in there for days. But they said, don't go in for 4 hours. But he had some work to do. He was very busy. He had work to do. So he went into his office and sat there and did his work.
Right.
2 weeks later, he started losing his eyesight.
Imagine that.
So when she told him that story, she was like, okay, we need to start testing you for whether these toxins are sitting in your system and might be responsible. Anyway, she did some hair analysis, she did some blood samples, some urine analysis, and she did find a whole load of toxins in his system.
She did find.
So then she treated him, had a protocol for detoxifying him from those chemicals.
Just quickly before you get to that point, so the toxins that were identified, like where do you find these toxins normally? Like, what was the culprit? Where did these toxins come from?
So they came from that spray that had been used to fumigate his house.
They are toxins that you find in sprays?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right. So they came into his system. You would have sat there and breathed them all in.
Right.
And then they went all over his system, attacked his nerves essentially, which is what MS is.
Yes.
So she started a protocol with him where she detoxified him from these toxins.
How long does that take, that protocol to detoxify?
So it varies from person to person. It depends on the level of exposure, the severity of the exposure. For some people, for example, if you're doing mercury detoxification,
something that I've done.
Right? Okay, yeah. And it's a very common issue that people have because we have mercury in amalgams, dental amalgams, your fillings, your silver fillings.
Yeah, it was the silver fillings. Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to detoxify a person from those, then it could be 3 months. If you're going to be detoxifying a person who's got MS now because of toxins in their system, it could be a year, it could be longer.
Right.
Right. So it varies from person to person, and it does take an expert to do it. So so she started detoxification protocol with him, and just within a few weeks, his eyesight stopped deteriorating, and then within a few more weeks, he started getting his eyesight back.
Imagine that,
right.
His eyesight, such an important aspect of life.
Right, exactly. And imagine, he's a breadwinner. He was from an Orthodox Jewish community, so the women didn't go out to work. He's a breadwinner. He's got young children, and he's losing his eyesight. Imagine what kind of an impact that would have had, not just on him, but his entire family. So that was him. But the interesting thing is that Jenny, my mentor, she had seen several cases of MS where she had found the toxins were responsible. She had treated that issue. And then people would go back to the neurologist, and they'd be told after having made improvements, and the neurologist would say, oh, we must have got the diagnosis wrong.
So when you say made improvements, what does that mean? Does that mean like they had a life without MS, or?
Yeah, for some of them. And that you can look this up. There's a doctor called Dr. Terry Wall, so that's WAHL, and she essentially cured herself from MS. So she was wheelchair bound, and now she's healthy, active, going for hikes, speaking at medical conferences, has written papers, is doing research into MS, etc. So, yeah, these are people who their symptoms would disappear completely.
So, I mean, I know people in our community that have MS, and I'm just imagining that if they had this opportunity and this understanding in what kind of change it would make to their life,
right? Exactly,
and the quality of their life.
Yeah, and it's a sad reality though that for most of those people, they won't know this stuff.
Yeah,
and also it's not something you hear from your doctor.
Absolutely. And this is why, one of the reasons why I loved doing this show with you, because I know you've got so much value to add because of your research, your training, your background, is that you've actually looked at a lot of, you've looked at the bigger picture. Very much like your mentor's approach, the ecological approach to medicine, is that looking outside the box and not just looking at what the issue that your patient comes with you with, but looking at the bigger picture, really taking a thorough history. And trying to take a multifaceted approach to their healing.
Yeah, I do remember in our very first show we were speaking about when you're looking at as holistic beings and you're looking at mind, body, spirit. When you take that approach and you have a approach of looking at the well-being of all aspects of you, then that has an impact on how you relate to the environment, and that then has an impact on how we are internally within ourselves, because anything happening in the environment is happening within us. And I think for me, that's how I ended up practicing this form of medicine, or even looking into it. There were bigger questions. It wasn't, if someone came to me depressed, it's not about just handing them out an antidepressant. It's about what is going on for this person that they've ended up here. Absolutely. And for some people, it's going to be childhood trauma. For another person, it can be cadmium in their system.
Mm-hmm.
Or a combination of both.
Yeah.
So you've got to look at why things are happening. And our bodies are amazing. The more you learn about the human body, the more you're just in awe of Allah and just the perfect design that He's created us with. I mean, we're human beings, we're not perfect in every way, but the human body has been designed in a way that it's just fascinating, mind-boggling how amazing it is. It doesn't just malfunction.
Right. Yes.
Right. It just does. It just happens. Your child is just autistic.
Yeah.
It's not like that. There's reasons why these things are happening, and just because we don't know the reason doesn't mean there isn't a reason. But as doctors, we've got to be willing to look deeper.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, so I'm here and I'm thinking, okay, MS, that's a severe case because he had his house fumigated, but not everyone does that.
No.
So let's go back to the household products, for example, and let's say air fresheners, etc. What impact are they having on us? So what kind of cases will you or can you expect to see when there's been generations, let's say, of these, because now it's been generation, right?
Yeah.
I would have been from my parents' generation, our parents' generation, our generation, and the coming generation. So they've been exposed to it for, a couple of decades, we have been. And you mentioned how exposure to these toxins, and these toxins enter our bloodstream and can go all the way down to our DNA. How does this explain the newborn babies with intolerances?
Okay, so if we are saying that these toxins have the ability to attach to our DNA and sit there for decades and decades, you now have children who, at the point of conception, are at a disadvantage compared to previous generations, right? So at that point,
because they have toxins in their...
They have toxins
the
within
DNA
their
has been
DNA.
affected by the toxins.
Right, okay. And we now have this speciality or science, I guess you can call it, of epigenetics.
Yes.
Where we're not just saying what genes you have and you don't have, but what's saying is what environmental factors are impacting those genes. And we know it's a real thing. Everything from nutrients to these chemicals will have an impact on which genes are switched on and are effective and which genes are switched off or are ineffective, right? So, so these children are being born at a disadvantage. On top of that, then they might be more likely to be born. Mom might have high blood pressure, or she might have diabetes, so they're more likely to be born via a C-section. And now their microbiome is affected.
Explain that a little bit more, because I know what you're talking about, but not everyone does.
So we have...
so what does it mean, having a C-section? How does it impact the baby and maybe even the mother?
So before I talk about how the C-section impacts, what we need to understand is human beings, we have billions and billions of microbes or bacteria, viruses, and fungi and yeast that live on us, right? And for the most part, we need them to survive. And we need them to be healthy. And as a child comes into the world, the womb is generally a sterile environment. But when they come into the world through the process of a natural birth, they're being exposed to bacteria from mum, right? That's not a bad thing. We need those bacteria to come into our gut, and that happens during a natural birth. They come into the child's mouth, into the gut, and inculcate the gut. So they start living in the gut, they start multiplying in the gut. Those bacteria then impact how we absorb nutrients. They impact how we, healthy our gut lining is. They produce certain substances that then have an impact on our brain function, right? They have now more and more research is coming out of the link between these bacteria and conditions as varied as depression and obesity and motor neuron disease. Would you believe it?
Wow. That's huge.
You know, mention any eczema, food allergies, all of these things, mention any of them, and the microbiome plays some role in it. Diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all of these things, the microbiome has an impact on it. And we need the microbiome to be diverse, we need it to be healthy. What happens is when you have a child who has is born via a cesarean instead of a normal vaginal birth, and let's weigh up the impact on mum for a second of having a cesarean instead of having a normal birth. But so this child comes into the world via a cesarean, and so doesn't get that bacteria coming into their gut that they should have done from mum during a normal birth. So already they have less in terms of diversity of their microbiome. That's reduced already, right? Then they might have an antibiotic because they're slow to establish feeding, you know, or mom had a temperature during the delivery, so they get an antibiotic for 48 hours until they figure out whether they have an infection or not.
Right.
So they get the antibiotics.
Before even identifying whether there's an infection or not.
So often there are some signs that they look for, or some situations where the child will get antibiotics to prevent something happening. Or sometimes they think the child might have an infection because their blood sugars have dropped, for example. So they'll give them antibiotics without waiting to confirm the diagnosis. And, you know, there's some research behind that, but we would recognize that there are also long-term implications of that approach. So they get the antibiotics. The antibiotics now knock off any bacteria that has entered into their gut. So again, that's like a triple whammy now. And so these things are already putting that child at a great disadvantage. That's why we're getting more and more children who are from a very, very young age have food intolerances, from birth essentially have food intolerances or eczema. And then as they start getting older, we might start noticing developmental problems. And then, you know, they go on to have recurrent ear infections. They get recurrent antibiotics. They don't play outside anymore because, you know, we just don't spend so much time outside. So they're not exposed to the bacteria from the soil. All of these issues. And then on top of that, we're bleaching everything. We're bleaching the baby's bottles and teats and the house. And then all these chemicals that kill off not just the bacteria, but our cells as well.
It's a tough one. So as you're talking about this and telling us a story from literally from conception, it's a tough one. The situation that we're in is not easy. And as a listener, you know, I could be thinking, so gosh, like it feels like everything is against me. Where do I start? And really, can I make a difference?
You can make a big difference. You can make, I mean, I've already mentioned people with MS that got better by making some changes in their life, right? So definitely you can make a big difference. So
what is the change that you would say that we need to make? Where do we start? Just to make it easy for us, make it simple for us, and give us a starting point, and then we can embark on our journey at a different pace, you know, a pace that suits us.
Okay, let's start with I'm going to go with one that would impact the entire family. And that's, what am I cleaning my home with? What chemicals are in my air fresheners, my cleaning product? Let's start there. If you're, you know, are using bleach and your normal Sif and whatever they are
and
these
this
days.
is not anything against Sif.
We
are not being paid by any alternative brands.
It's
just because we can't remember what Sif actually is. We just remember the brand name.
Gosh, I should know some of the names. We have them in the house.
Yeah, but we just see Sif, right? Okay, so we've got these cleaning products, and we've decided we're no longer going to use these cleaning products because we want to reduce the amount of toxins that are entering our body.
Okay, well, the internet is a wonderful thing, and there are sites dedicated to natural cleaning products, and I have to say I have found nothing to be, in terms of cleaning, to be more effective than vinegar, lemon juice, and bicarbonate of soda. It pretty much
Combined.
cleans anything. So you combine your lemon juice and your vinegar in a spray bottle, spray where you want to clean, and then sprinkle some bicarbonate of soda on top. Leave it for a bit, then do a bit of a scrub, and it'll be shiny and it'll be clean. And it works almost anywhere. And there's no
Even in the
toxicity.
toilet.
Yeah, you can work in the
Does
toilet.
it clean it as good as the bleach?
I think it does.
And also, and as you know, that I'm also interested in alternatives to high toxin products. So, and I was looking, I thought, so what can I share? Because not everyone is ready to make it at home, right?
No.
Do it yourself.
Or things that don't have the time or want something that smells nice.
Yeah, and so you want an alternative. So, so I was looking to see, so how do I share this alternative without sharing brands? So I did come across a piece by The Independent where they gave a list of products for the UK customers that are natural products and alternatives to your bleach, alternatives to your Cif, alternatives to all your different sprays and whatnots that you can use, and it actually cleans, and it's in a bottle, so you don't need to do anything. It's, you can purchase it from local supermarkets, or you can just order it online, and sometimes if you buy bulk, it's a little bit cheaper as well. You might look at the prices and think, this is more than what I usually pay. But really, it's a trade-off. The question you need to ask is it worth the investment? And so, what's the point of money? The point of money is to have a good standard of life.
Yeah.
So where are we going to spend it? Well, we could spend it on an extra takeaway or an extra trip to a restaurant or desserts, which are coming out left, right, and centre. And I'm not going to mention KFC. That's not even food. But yeah, KFC, So we've all got a budget for things. It's just about adjusting the budget so that we can spend it in the right place to truly have that good standard of living.
Yeah. And I think that's, I know things are hard right now. The cost of living is going up.
The economy is not in a great place.
So things are hard for people. But I think for a lot of people, there is that question that needs to be asked: what are my priorities?
Yeah.
And often I think we can forget about the long term. We're focusing just on the short term. Right now, how much money can I save by buying this product instead of that one?
Absolutely.
But actually, long term, what impact would it have on your quality of, not just your quality of life in terms of what you're capable of doing, but actually your financial situation if you became ill with a chronic disease?
Absolutely. Trips to the doctor, paying for the medicine.
Right. Okay. And then how much you can actually work and what you can build in terms of inheritance for your children, etc.
And also, when these toxins are in your body, also affects your mental health. So your ability to perform, to earn an income, also is impacted. So actually, you'd be financially better off if, and we would all be financially better off if we invested in our health before we invested in anything else. But financial issues are not the only issues that are preventing us from actually making this move.
No.
I know there are individuals that are geared towards this, and they invested in this and, buy all the right products or make things at home. They've just got used to it. And, habits take a time, but once they've formed, it becomes easy. But there are actually other reasons that prevent us from making this move. Did you want to share one of those other reasons?
I think yes, lack of education is one of them. And I
guess this is why we're here, is to help share this and educate individuals so that we become aware of the things that are harming us. Most of us aren't even aware that these things are actually harmful for us. And actually,
it's
most
just
of us,
something we never would think about.
I know, because I remember only, let's say, 12 years ago, I used to celebrate the fact that my bathroom smells like bleach. It's like, yes, it's clean. And as moms, we have this conversation. Yeah, I cleaned my bathroom today. It smelled like bleach. Like, yay. And like, give each other a high five, or whatever the alternative is for mums. Because you're proud, like you've done a good clean. But actually, it's, I noticed it was affecting me. And so I made the changes many, many years ago. But we've done step one, hopefully. And we can share this with your family and friends, because it's something that's impacting us as a community, not just as individuals. But aside education and finances, we've got a few more minutes.
I think there can sometimes be a level of resistance, because if you're hearing from this, you're hearing that your child's eczema, severe eczema, might be down to the cleaning products that are being used in your home. People can feel as if there's a sense of blame, and it's not blame. It's not blame. It's responsibility. We are
you can't help what you don't know.
Yeah, right.
And we have this general idea that we trust the government and we trust the services.
Right.
And we trust our supermarkets and we trust the products that are being put on the shelves.
Yeah, and I think this idea of trusting the well, why would these products be allowed if why would these products be allowed if they're harmful? It's because these industries have huge lobbying power when it comes to our governments.
Yeah, and profits.
And yeah,
money
exactly.
talks.
Right.
Well, it's been a great conversation with you, Dr. Ruqia, and you know, it's been so informative, and I always enjoy these conversations. And I'm so glad we've done this topic and are able to share it with the wider public, because we've given them something to go away with and hopefully do more research and start to bring about those changes. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so next week, we might talk a little bit more about toxicity and its
Because
impact.
I think we need to talk a little bit more about
resistance.
Yeah.
And how we can overcome the resistance,
Yeah.
so that we can create a community that works together to heal. Because, you know, it takes a family, it takes a village to raise children, and let's raise them well. I look forward to seeing you next week, everyone, and talking to you
Inshallah.
about the topic.
Thank you so much. See you next week. Assalamu alaikum.